He ruled an empire with an iron fist but couldn't command his own body. Women threw themselves at him, yet he felt nothing cursed by an accident that stole his manhood. Until one desperate night, he ordered his personal assistant into his bed. For the first time in years, the ice melted. But when dawn came, so did her betrayal. She vanished with his secret, and 3 babies he never knew existed. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this, and drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Seoul's winter bit through the night air like betrayal itself. The city glittered below, a kingdom of glass and steel, all belonging to one man, Lee Chea. They called him the Ice King. Not because of his wealth, though he had enough to buy nations. Not because of his power, though governments bowed to his influence. They called him that because nothing moved him. No woman's touch, no lover's whisper, no heat in his blood. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, hands buried in his pockets, staring at the city lights like they were chess pieces waiting for his command. His reflection stared back, sharp jawline, cold eyes, a face that belonged on magazine covers but felt more like a mask. Behind him, his personal assistant worked in silence. Vannessa, 27 years old, brilliant, efficient, invisible. She'd been with him for 2 years, and in all that time, she'd never once looked at him the way other women did. No desperate flirtation. No lingering touches. Just professionalism wrapped in a navy suit and tied back hair. That's what he told himself he appreciated about her. But tonight, as exhaustion pulled at his bones and frustration clawed at his chest, he realized the truth. He noticed everything about her. The way she bit her lip when concentrating, how her voice softened when she thought he wasn't listening, the lavender scent that trailed behind her. Vannessa. She looked up from her laptop, her brown eyes steady. Yes, Mr. Lee? He turned slowly, his gaze heavy with something dangerous. Cancel tomorrow's meetings. She frowned slightly. All of them? All. May I ask why? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked toward his desk, each step deliberate. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost a whisper. Because I'm tired of pretending. Confusion flickered across her face. But before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. A message from his doctor. The same doctor who delivered the same devastating news 5 years ago after the car accident that nearly killed him. Asterisk. Still no improvement. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. Asterisk. He stared at the screen, jaw tight, then set the phone down with controlled precision. Vannessa noticed. She always did. Is everything all right, sir? Leave it, he said sharply. Then, softer, almost vulnerable, just leave it. But as she reached the door, his voice stopped her cold. Vannessa, stay. She turned, confused. Sir? His eyes met hers, and for the first time in 2 years, she saw something crack in that icy exterior. Pain. Raw, unfiltered pain. I need you to do something for me, he said quietly. Of course. Anything. He walked toward her slowly, his shadow falling over her small frame. Warm my bed tonight. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vannessa's eyes widened, her breath catching. I don't understand. Yes, you do. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. I'm asking you to spend the night with me. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't a request. It was a command wrapped in desperation. And yet, somewhere in the chaos of her thoughts, a dangerous truth surfaced. She'd wanted this. For months, she'd buried her feelings under professionalism, convinced herself that Lee Chea was untouchable, unreachable. But here he stood, broken and human, asking her to be the one thing no one else could be. His warmth. Why me? She whispered. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath. Because you're the only one who doesn't look at me like I'm a god. You see me. Just me. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. And if I say yes? His hand lifted, trembling, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Then maybe, just for tonight, I'll feel alive again. The penthouse suite was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. Vannessa stood in the doorway of Lee Chea's bedroom, her heart a wild drum in her chest. The room was enormous, sleek, modern, cold, just like him. But when he turned to face her, pulling off his tie with slow, deliberate movements, she didn't see the Ice King. She saw a man haunted by loneliness. "You can still leave," he said quietly, his voice raw. She swallowed hard. "I don't want to." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, relief, hunger. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her close, his lips crashing against hers with a desperation that stole her breath. It wasn't gentle. It was fire and fury. Years of repression shattering like glass. His hands trembled as they traced her waist, her back, memorizing every curve like he was afraid she'd disappear. "Lee Chea," she gasped between kisses. "Don't," he whispered against her mouth. "Don't call me that. Not tonight. Then what do I call you?" He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "Chea. Just Chea." And when she whispered his name like a prayer, something inside him broke open. For the first time in 5 years, he felt it. Heat. Desire. Life surging through his veins like lightning. They fell into each other, tangled in silk sheets and whispered confessions. Every touch was electric. Every breath sacred. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only them, 2 people desperate to feel something real. Hours later, as moonlight spilled through the windows, Vannessa lay beside him, tracing invisible patterns on his chest. His arm was wrapped around her, holding her close like she was the only thing anchoring him to earth. "Chea," she whispered. What happens tomorrow?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Tomorrow doesn't exist yet. Let me have tonight." She smiled against his skin, her heart full and terrified at once, because she knew the truth. This wasn't just one night for her. This was everything. When dawn finally crept through the curtains, Lee Chea stirred, reaching for her, but his hand found only cold sheets. He sat up fast, eyes scanning the room. Empty. Her clothes were gone. Her perfume lingered, but she was nowhere. Panic clawed at his chest. He grabbed his phone, dialing her number. It went straight to voicemail. Asterisk. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Asterisk. His heart dropped. He threw on clothes and tore through the white penthouse, calling her name. Nothing. She'd vanished like smoke, like a dream he'd woken from too soon. Days turned into weeks. He hired investigators, tracked every lead, called in favors from people who owed him their lives. But Vannessa had disappeared completely. No trace. No trail. Like she'd never existed at all. At first, he was angry. Then confused. Then hollow. Because for one night, she'd made him feel human. And now, she'd taken that feeling with her. What he didn't know was why. Why she'd run. Why she'd erased herself from his world so completely. And he definitely didn't know about the 3 tiny heartbeats growing inside her. 3 months later, Vannessa sat in a clinic in Busan, staring at the ultrasound screen with tears streaming down her face. "Congratulations," the doctor said warmly. "You're having triplets." Triplets. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. 3 babies. Lee Chea's babies. She'd left Seoul the morning after that night, her heart shattered but her decision firm. Because the day before she'd gone to his penthouse, she'd overheard him on the phone with someone. His voice had been cold, dismissive. "Vannessa? She's just my assistant. Efficient, yes, but nothing more. I could replace her tomorrow if I wanted." The words had crushed something vital inside her. She'd spent 2 years falling for him quietly, desperately, hopelessly. And that night in his bed hadn't been desperation for him, it had been love. But for him, it was just need. A transaction. A way to feel something. So she'd left. Not because she didn't love him, but because she loved herself more than to stay where she wasn't truly wanted. Now, sitting in this clinic with 3 lives growing inside her, she made a vow. "I'll protect you," she whispered, hand on her belly. "Your father may not want us, but I'll love you enough for both of us." 3 years passed like a slow-burning candle. Lee Chea never stopped searching. He built an entire department dedicated to finding her, spent millions, called in every favor. But Vannessa had become a ghost. His empire grew, his wealth multiplied, But the hollow in his chest only deepened. Until one autumn evening, when fate decided to stop being cruel, Lee Chea walked into Seoul National Hospital for a routine checkup, his doctor's orders. He hated hospitals. They reminded him of weakness. But as he stepped into the lobby, his entire world tilted. There, standing at the reception desk, was Vannessa. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her face more mature, her eyes carrying a weight they hadn't before. But it was her. Undeniably, heartbreakingly her. Time stopped. Their eyes met across the crowded lobby, and the air between them crackled with 3 years of unspoken words. Her face went pale. Then, before he could move, before he could call her name, she turned and walked away fast. "Vannessa." His voice echoed through the hospital. She didn't stop. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares, his heart pounding. When he finally caught up to her outside, rain had started to fall, soft and cold. "Vannessa, wait, don't." She spun around, eyes blazing with tears and fury. "Don't you dare." He froze, stunned by the venom in her voice. "Where have you been?" "I've looked everywhere." "You looked?" She laughed bitterly. "Why? So you could replace me more efficiently?" Confusion crashed over him. "What are you talking about?" "I heard you," she shouted, rain soaking through her coat. "That day before everything. You told someone I was just your assistant, that you could replace me tomorrow. So I did you a favor. I replaced myself." His face went white. The phone call. He remembered it now. His business partner mocking him about hiring a pretty assistant, insinuating things. Lee Chea had shut him down with cold dismissal, trying to protect her reputation. But she'd only heard half the conversation. "Vannessa, that's not... Mommy." A small voice cut through the rain. They both turned. 3 children came running from the hospital doors, 2 boys and a girl, no older than 3. They had Lee Chea's dark eyes, his sharp features, his unmistakable presence. He stared at them, the world spinning. "Vannessa, are they?" She wrapped her arms around her children protectively, tears mixing with rain. "They're mine. Only mine." But he knew the truth. He saw it in their faces, in the way they looked at him with curious, intelligent eyes. His voice broke. "You were pregnant." She said nothing. "And you left because you thought I didn't care." "You didn't," she whispered. "I was just convenient. You were everything." The words ripped from him like a confession he'd been holding for 3 years. "That phone call, I was protecting you. My partner was implying things, and I shut him down. But I didn't know you heard. Vannessa, you weren't just my assistant. You were the only person who made me feel human." She shook her head, tears falling freely. "Don't do this. I've spent 3 years searching for you. 3 years regretting that I didn't tell you the truth that night." He stepped closer, rain dripping from his hair. "I love you. I've loved you since the day you corrected my presentation in front of the board without fear. Since the day you brought me coffee exactly how I liked it without asking. Since the night you stayed." Her breath hitched. One of the boys tugged her coat. "Mommy, is that our dad?" The question hung in the air like thunder. Lee Chea dropped to his knees in the rain, looking at the 3 children, his children. "I didn't know," he said, voice cracking. "But I want to. I want to know everything. Their names, their favorite foods, what makes them laugh." He looked up at Vannessa. "And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you were never just convenient. You are irreplaceable. If you've ever felt this kind of heartbreak, comment your experience and where you're watching from." The rain poured harder, as if the sky itself was weeping for them. Vannessa stood frozen, torn between the love she'd buried and the pain she'd carried for 3 years. Lee Chea remained on his knees, soaked through, eyes only for her and the children who bore his face. "Their names," she finally whispered, voice trembling. "Lee Jun, Lee Minho, and Lee Hana." His eyes widened. "You gave them my name? They deserve to know where they came from, even if you never would." She wiped her tears angrily. "I never wanted to keep them from you out of spite, Chea. I kept them from you because I couldn't bear to be someone's obligation. Someone you kept around because of children, not because you wanted me." He stood slowly, water dripping from his suit. "Then let me prove it. Not because of them." He glanced at the triplets with wonder. "But because 3 years ago, you changed me." dead inside. And I've been dying slowly ever since you left. Little Hana stepped forward, tugging his sleeve. Mister, why are you making Mommy cry? Lee Chea knelt again, meeting her eyes at her level. Because I'm trying very hard to ask your mommy to give me a chance. Do you think she should? Hana studied him seriously, then looked at her brothers. The boys whispered among themselves before June spoke up. Mommy cries at night sometimes. She thinks we don't hear. But we do. Vannessa's face crumpled. Babies, Minho added quietly. She looks at pictures on her phone. Pictures of a man. Is that you? Lee Chea looked up at Vannessa, something raw and vulnerable in his expression. You kept pictures? She looked away, unable to meet his gaze. I tried to hate you. I really did. And? His voice was barely a whisper. And I failed. The admission broke from her like a dam bursting. I failed every single day for 3 years. He stood, closing the distance between them, until they were inches apart. Then stop trying, stop running, stop protecting yourself from something that could be everything. What if you hurt me again? Then I'll spend every day after making it right. He cupped her face gently, raindrops sliding between them. Vannessa, I'm not perfect. I'm broken in ways I'm still discovering. But I'm whole when you're near me. Let me be whole again. Let me be theirs. He glanced at the children. Let me be yours. She closed her eyes, tears streaming. When she opened them again, she saw the man she fell in love with, not the Ice King, but Chea. Just Chea. One chance, she whispered. That's all you get. He smiled, genuinely smiled for the first time in 3 years. I won't need more than that. He pulled her close, and she melted into him. 3 years of loneliness evaporating in his embrace. The triplets gathered around them, hugging their legs, laughter mixing with tears and rain. 6 months later, Lee Chea stood at the altar in a private garden ceremony, surrounded by flowers and the few people who truly mattered. Vannessa walked toward him in a simple white dress, holding hands with Hana, who scattered petals with serious concentration. The boys walked beside her as ring-bearers, their little suits matching their father's. When she reached him, Lee Chea's eyes were wet. You're stunning. You're crying, she teased softly. I'm allowed to cry when I'm getting everything I've ever wanted. The officiant spoke words about love and commitment, but Lee Chea barely heard them. He was too busy memorizing every detail, the way the sunlight caught in Vannessa's hair, how the triplets kept whispering excitedly, the feeling of her hand in his. When it came time for vows, he cleared his throat. Vannessa, 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost my chance at life. Then you appeared, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to breathe. I promised to never let you doubt how much you mean to me. I promised to be the father our children deserve. And I promised that every day I'll choose you, not out of obligation, but because you're the only choice that matters. Vannessa's voice trembled. Chea, you taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up even when it's hard. About fighting for what matters. You are what matters. You and our children. I promise to never run again. I promise to stay and fight and love you through everything. You may now kiss your bride. And he did, pulling her close as their children cheered and the world faded to nothing but them. That night, in their new home, a sprawling estate that somehow felt warm instead of cold, Lee Chea sat on the floor with his children. June climbed into his lap. Daddy, tell us a story. What kind of story? A love story, Hana demanded. Minho nodded enthusiastically. About a prince and princess. Lee Chea smiled, pulling Vannessa down beside them. How about I tell you a true story? About an ice king, who thought he'd never feel warmth again. Until one day, a brave assistant melted his frozen heart. Did they live happily ever after? Hana asked. Vannessa leaned against her husband's shoulder, watching their children's excited faces. They're still working on it. But working on it together, Lee Chea added, pressing a kiss to her temple. And that's better than any fairy tale ending. As the children drifted off to sleep, curled around their parents like puppies, Vannessa whispered, Do you regret anything? Only that I didn't tell you I loved you that first night. And now? He turned to look at her, eyes full of everything he felt. Now I'll tell you every day until my last breath. I love you, Vannessa. Completely. Impossibly. Forever. She smiled, tears glistening. I love you too, Chea, even when you're insufferable. He laughed softly. Especially when I'm insufferable. They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by their sleeping children. The home they'd built together, the life they'd fought for. Lee Chea had once ruled an empire with an iron fist but couldn't command his own heart, until Vannessa taught him that real power wasn't about control, it was about surrender. Surrendering to love, to vulnerability, to the terrifying and beautiful chaos of being truly, completely alive. And as rain began to fall softly outside, tapping against the windows like a lullaby, they held each other close, not as boss and assistant, not as two broken people trying to fix each other, but as partners, lovers, parents, as everything they were always meant to be. The ice had melted, the king had fallen, and in his place stood a man who'd learned the most important lesson of all. That sometimes, the greatest strength is admitting you need someone. They say love doesn't return the same way it leaves, but sometimes it comes back stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than before. Sometimes it comes back with 3 little heartbeats and a second chance to get it right. And this time, Lee Chea would make sure it lasted forever. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Afro-Korean World for more emotional love stories. And don't forget to tell me in the comments where you're watching from and if you've ever experienced a love like this.